Donnie Brasco is a gangster film based on the true story of Joseph Pistone about an undercover FBI agent who infiltrated the Bonanno crime family in the 1970s. Starring Johnny Depp, Al Pacino and Michael Madsen, Donnie Brasco is an essential mob movie for crime film lovers. It depicts the paranoia and danger Pistone is in, his family life and marriage falling apart as a result of his work, but also his infatuation with the life, in particular his growing closeness to Lefty Ruggiero, the two developing a genuine relationship. One of the film's most notable elements is the depiction of low-level mob life as unglamorous, scrappy and downbeat, a precursor, if you will, to The Sopranos, which took this concept and really amplified it. Where previous mob movies like Goodfellas and The Godfather arguably glorified the lifestyle, Donnie Brasco is more grounded, personal, honest and realistic, offering a warts and all look at mob life, stripping away attractive and romanticized elements to showcase most gangsters are deadbeats struggling to make ends meet. If The Godfather depicts the aristocracy of the mafia and Goodfellas highlights the middle class, Donnie Brasco is essentially a look at the working class of the mafia. This is mainly done through Al Pacino's Lefty, a lonely, washed-up loser who never amounted to much and whose major scores are things like stealing quarters from parking meters. And he at one point gifts Donnie some money and a few minutes later asks for a loan, taking back the cash he just gave. Through Pacino's performance, we are offered a poignant insight into what is essentially one of the mafia genre's most underrated tragic characters. Pacino really is incredible in this film, forget about it. I think to the scene early on when the mob is waiting for the boss and Lefty's hovering around, admiration and awe in his face, trying to get seen, desperate for an ounce of recognition, and then he just gets ignored. He never speaks once, it's all in the face and behind the eyes. Anyway, I'd love to talk more about the themes of the film, but that's something we can discuss in another video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more mafia movie videos. Today, I wanted to talk about a curious little scene that left me kind of confused when I first watched it, and I still don't really have an answer for it. So late on in the film, during a time when the crew are convinced that there is a rat in their midst, Sonny Black stages a hit against his rival Sonny Red, who arrives in a basement with his goons only to have Black's crew open fire and kill them. Before this, when Sonny Black and his men are preparing, one of Black's goons, Paulie, bluntly says to Donnie, "Where you going? Wait in the car." Given Donnie is not a made guy and not officially in the inner circle of the crew, it makes sense for him not to be intimately involved in such a risky high-level operation. Once the killings are done, Sonny Black tells Paulie to go and get Donnie. But Paulie, instead of tapping the car window or something, gets into the car, sits in the back and remains silent for a few seconds. A nervous Donnie asks, "What's going on? Is everything alright?" And all Paulie says is, "What?" And then after a pause, he leans forward and points a gun at Pistone, telling him to get up. The music swells and becomes tense as Paulie follows Donnie to the house. Donnie is shook by the sight he sees and perhaps momentarily wonders if he is next. He is handed a tool to cut up the bodies, and suddenly Nicky is shot dead by Lefty, and the tension dissipates. Now Nicky was a rat because Sonny Black says he was a rat, but that notwithstanding, what was up with that scene in the car? So clearly, even though we might have thought Donnie was about to get exposed, all Sonny Black asked Paulie to do was call him to help them start chopping. So why did Paulie sit in silence, drumming up tension, and why did he point a gun at Donnie? Incidentally, it isn't the first time we're led to believe there's going to be a hit and Paulie tells Donnie to wait in the car. It happens earlier in the film when Lefty thinks he's going to be whacked. But this second incident with the gun, it doesn't really make sense to me, and seems only to have happened so that we as the audience get a sense of tension and anxiety as we anticipate Donnie himself getting whacked. And really, if I'm brutally honest, I see no tangible reason for this sequence to exist other than to manufacture some added tension. But in universe, it doesn't make much sense, and as such, it comes off, rather unfortunately, as cheap on part of the filmmakers, in a film that is otherwise so immersive and realistic. Paulie even puts the gun away once they enter the home. It's not as if Donnie had any reason to run away or something, it just feels pretty lame, all things considered. One could argue it was a test of some sort, Paulie testing Donnie's mettle, but he's chosen a very bizarre time for a hazing ritual. Ultimately, it's a plot device to add suspense, and it's not something you might think too much about the first time you watch the film, because like Donnie, you think this might be it for Pistone. But upon rewatches, as you break down the film, you do start thinking to yourself that there was literally no reason for Paulie to do what he did here. I do think we can come up with some relatively plausible reasons though. For one, Paulie was always kind of cold and hostile to Donnie throughout the film, much more so than the other gangsters who warm up to Donnie, and it speaks to how non-made associates of the mob are often treated like trash. They are a completely different lower class than the established mafioso, so it might simply be a case of Paulie not liking Donnie as a person and as a mob associate, so he just isn't very nice to him. There's nobody else here, no Lefty or Sonny Black to defend Donnie, so it's a chance for Paulie to flex his muscles a bit and scare Donnie a little at a time when he's without protection. What reason does Paulie have to be nice to Donnie? The mob doesn't have these social norms that the general population has, where you expect everyone to be civil to each other. In the mob, a guy like Paulie would be expected to treat a guy like Donnie differently to his own peers. Maybe this was just Paulie's standard behavior towards Donnie. He's always giving him shit, and pointing a gun at him is just another one of the many Paulie incidents against Donnie. Interestingly, Paulie is based on John Kerasani, who Pistone tells us in his books was more hostile towards him than most, never trusted him, and was one of the few guys who wouldn't even talk to him. That works, I guess, but I also think it's plausible that Paulie simply wasn't thinking straight. He had just taken part in an incredibly risky multi-hit, which if gone wrong, would surely mean he and his entire crew would be wiped out. And if done right, everyone alive in the room would be better off. It was a success, and he'd just shot a group of people in a chaotic sequence that would give him a feeling of euphoria and would get the adrenaline pumping. And it's in this state that he goes to get Donnie. He's even walked down a residential street with blood on his face and a gun in his hand. Sitting in the car for a few seconds would allow him to calm down, catch himself. And he does seem out of breath. It's also a chance for him to cheekily have the other guys start on the body chopping without him. But Paulie does seem a bit disconnected in this scene. Donnie says, "What's going on?" And Paulie replies with a, "What?" That sounds genuinely mystified, like he doesn't know where he is. He's got an adrenaline rush, and perhaps it's just an in-the-moment kind of thing, him pointing a gun at Donnie. He's probably in shock, having taken part in an intense bloodbath. The basement scene itself adds credence to this, as there's a part where Paulie is about to shoot the fat guy, risking shooting Sonny Black, and Lefty pushes Paulie away and holds him back. Perhaps Paulie went into a frenzy during the shooting, and he was still hyped up and shaken during the car scene. This, I think, is the best in-universe reason for Paulie pointing a gun at Donnie that we can give. Also, come to think of it, Paulie has just been involved in a shootout in a confined area where there are shotgun blasts going off. Him saying "what" might simply be because he had temporarily lost his hearing. To give this scene a more logical look, if we take a step back and consider the characters themselves, what they know, what they don't know, it could be possible that the crew is so secretive that even Paulie at this point in the story doesn't know who the rat is, and he isn't aware Nicky is about to be whacked. Perhaps it's only Sonny and Lefty that were in the know. So when Paulie is told to get Donnie, maybe he did think that he's getting him to be taken out, and he only learned the truth when Lefty took out Nicky. His reaction to the shooting isn't much to go on, so that doesn't help us much, but I don't think it's too far to suggest his reaction was one of surprise. Paulie did hand Donnie a tool, which suggests that he knows he isn't going to be whacked, and he knows Sonny wants him there for the cleanup job. But in this theory of ours, it could be that he's playing the part of the ruse to lure Donnie into a false sense of security. If this is the case, it would make the scene make a lot more sense. And if you couple that with the adrenaline rush he'd be feeling, it all adds up to why Paulie appears confused in the moment in the car. Maybe he was thinking, did Sonny tell me to get Donnie, or am I supposed to get Donnie? If I'm supposed to get him for his execution, I can drop all pretense of him being a fellow mobster and treat him like the rat he is. Maybe we could also argue that Paulie isn't strictly speaking pointing the gun at Donnie. He just happened to have the gun in his hand while he points at Donnie during a moment when he's trying to clear his head and isn't thinking about Donnie himself, and Pistone, being paranoid, thinks that he's been rumbled. So the movie plays it that way because that's what Donnie would have been feeling at the time. This sense of paranoia that he's been found out. We're supposed to feel like he felt at that time in real life. All in all though, I don't really see a reason for Paulie pointing a gun at Donnie other than for dramatic effect, so that we think Donnie himself might be in danger. But I think the reasons we've given in this video do suffice for an in-universe explanation. The idea that Paulie was simply not in a right state of mind at the time. It's curious that towards the end of the film, when the feds inform the mob that Pistone was undercover, Paulie says, "Nice bluff, huh?" indicating that he doesn't believe Donnie was a rat. But I don't think this really helps us with the car scene, because he could have thought Donnie was a rat earlier in the film, but was confident he wasn't after Nicky takes the hit. And also, Paulie doesn't say anything until Sonny Black scoffs at the idea of Donnie being a rat, so it's not as if he's going to go against what his skipper is saying, in a scene with such tension where they're all processing what they've been told. Really, it appears all three of them, Sonny, Paulie and Lefty, knew but didn't want to say. Saying it would make it reality. So what do you make of this scene? And why do you think Paulie pointed his gun at Donnie? Let me know in the comment section below, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.